let me have to step down.
Sorry, it's coming.
I can step down either way, I can step up. 13th chapter of the Revelation tonight will be our study. We've come to this book and this chapter, and this evening for time together, we'll be looking at some words that can be difficult to as Jethro says, cipher, but we'll do our best to do that and get meaning from what God has to say. Everything, a lot of figurative language tonight we'll be looking at, and I hope it'll be a blessing to you. We'll do verses 1 through 10 together. It says that he stood on the sand of the seashore. Now, let's try that up real fast. He stood on the sand of the seashore. I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 diadems. On his heads were blasphemous names. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like those of a bear. His mouth was like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his throne and great authority. I saw one of his heads as if it had been slain, and his fatal wound was healed, and the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon because he gave his authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, who is like the beast, and who is able to wage war with him? And there was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months was given to him. And he opened his mouth in blasphemies against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven. And it was given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. And all who dwell on the earth will worship him, everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who has been slain. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is destined for captivity, to captivity he goes. If anyone kills with the sword he must be killed. Here is the perseverance and the faith of the saints. Interesting bit of words tonight from these 10 verses that we've looked at. On your outline, I have 6 of the 7 main characters that I told you about when we began this section, 12, 13, and on. I left a blank just for you note takers, or if you want to put it in, if it's fine. If you don't, I thought we'd just look at these and see how well you remember who they are. So the 6 main characters thus far that we've studied, I wrote 7 on the outline. The woman. Who's the woman?
Israel.
Israel. Very good. And we've looked at the male child, who happens to be?
Jesus.
Jesus, I heard that? Yes, that's right. Who happens to be? Jesus, who's born of woman. And then we looked at the dragon, and that is Satan. And there was the archangel who fought with the dragon, who is Michael. And the Jewish remnant, we saw that. Where did they go to? They escaped into the wilderness. And tonight we have the beast from the sea, or the Antichrist. That's exactly right. So that's where we are tonight, talking about the Antichrist who's coming. Now, don't forget, he's already on the scene. Comes on the white horse. But as the progression of the 7-year tribulation continues, he gets more and more powerful, and we'll see that this evening. So we'll notice, first of all, the person of the beast. And we have some rather figurative language here that I think can be difficult to get, but we're going to get through it best we can. The first verse begins, and he. If you have a King James, what does it say? And I. Well, we've got a bit of a problem right off from the get-go, don't we? If it's he, then it's not John. If it's I, it looks like it is John, does it not? So the best manuscripts, and I've never seen a manuscript, couldn't read one if I had one in my hand. What I understand, the best manuscripts says he, and he stood on the seashore. I saw him standing there. It's just interesting. The person is on the seashore, if you will. He's standing there, and it is Satan or the dragon, who is giving him, welcoming him, and mentioning him. Now, we'll go back to chapter 12 for a second, and I'll show you why. Verse 9. So the great dragon was thrown down, the serpent of old, who is called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. And he was thrown down to the earth, and the angels were thrown down with him. Verse 13. And when the dragon saw that he was thrown down to the earth, he persecuted the woman who gave birth to the male child. Verse 17. And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went off to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of God and hold to their testimony. And we have a chapter break, and that's okay. It's not a bad thing. Chapter breaks can be, but the flow of thought continues from the last verse of the 12th chapter into the first verse of the second. So let me read it together. So the dragon was enraged with the woman, went off to make war with the rest of her offspring, who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus, and he stood on the sand of the seashore. So who's standing there?
Satan.
Yeah, the dragon. You see that? Satan is standing there. He's looking out over what appears to be the sea. But this is figurative language. He's not on a seashore, and he's not overlooking a sea, if you will. The sea is a reference to the Gentile world that he's looking out over. The dragon, Satan, the serpent, all one and the same, is looking out over a sea of humanity. Okay? There's no water, it's just people. And he's looking out over this Gentile world. And this mass of people represents those who are going into and through the tribulation period for the most part. And it is from this mass of humanity that the beast will rise from. Okay? I don't want to confuse you. We got the dragon. Now we have the beast rising up, what appears to be out of the sea, out of the masses of humanity. And the beast is the Antichrist. We've already established that. He says, I saw a beast rise, or coming up out of the sea. And I think a fair question would be, if this beast is coming up out of the sea, and it is the Antichrist, is he Gentile or Greek, or that'd be the same thing, or Jewish, or what? Well, the sea here represents the Western world, okay? So write that down if you need to, and it'll be helpful in the days to come. The sea represents the Western world and the Gentile nations, if you will. The Western world will be the Gentile nations. So it is out of the Gentile nations that this beast, the Antichrist, is going to come. And he has his rise. Now, I don't know who it is. I don't know what nation he's coming from, but he's out of the Gentile world. Now, does that mean he's not Jewish, or does that mean he's Jewish? It just means he's coming out of a Gentile nation, and he's probably Gentile. I don't think he's going to be Jewish anyway, but that's the question that's often asked. And I'll go as far to say it's one of the Western nations, and by Western nation, I do not mean India, and I do not mean Australia. I do not mean any African nation, and there's nothing wrong with any of those nations. I think it's going to be out of one of the European nations that this beast is going to rise. Now, that's my opinion, okay? But he is going to come out of this mass of humanity because he comes up out of the sea, and he is going to rule over the Western world. That's his plan. That's his goal. That's what he's going to do. That's what he says here in verse 3 and verse 1. So I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, and he's got 10 horns, 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 diadems, and on his heads were blasphemous names. So this beast that emerges out of what appears to be the Gentile nation, he's got 10 horns, number 1. Do I have that on here, dude? Should have, I don't. 7 heads and 10 horns, 7 heads. Let's do 7 heads first. So the 7 heads, the term here represents a person, the Antichrist, and the system that he brings with him. The system being he's going to be over the world. What's left of it? Some of it's going to be destroyed through the different seals and the trumpet sounds. But he's going to be over it, the 7 heads. So to get an idea of the 7 heads, let's turn a page or two over to the 17th chapter right quick. And in the 17th chapter, verse 9 and verse 10, here it is. Here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits, and they are 7 kings. And watch this. 5 have fallen, 1 is, and the other has not come yet. And when he comes, he must remain a little while. Now, so if there's 7 kingdoms that this is speaking about, who are the kingdoms? Who is John talking about here? Now, before we answer that, let's read just a little bit farther and see what it says here. 7 heads. Now, I'll tell you this too, right now. These 7 heads did not and do not exist all at the same time together. Okay? That you'll see that here in just a moment. But these 7 kingdoms, 7 heads, they do not exist all at the same time together. It says 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other is not yet come. The 7th will be a culmination, if you will, of the 6 altogether. And I'll explain this in just a second. I know this is just probably hard to hear. Then it mentions the 10 horns. And it says on his horns are 10 crowns. And he said that there will be 7, and he will be the 7th. The beast will be the seventh. Okay? So when we get to the seventh, I'm just going to muddy this all up. We get to the seventh will represent and be in the form of 10 kingdoms. I can see all your heads are all wrinkled up right now. And I get it. So let's spend a moment and we'll talk about these for just a second. There will be 10 kingdoms, 10 countries, 10 powers, 10 kings, if you will, that's going to be with him, and this beast is going to have authority over all of them, every one of them. There will be 10 kingdoms, 10 countries of the Western world. And they will be a representation of something that we already know about. They will be a representation of the old Roman Empire. Okay? And then it says at the last of that first verse, upon these heads are blasphemous names. Now, look at verse 2 for a moment, and I really am going to back up, and we're going to talk about these kingdoms here in just a moment. But verse 2 says, and the beast which I saw, which is the Antichrist which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like those of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. So we have a leopard, a lion, and a bear that's represented here. Now, if you've been in Brother Michael's study in Daniel, you should know who these three kingdoms are, because he has gone through this very, very well and explained it in detail about these three kingdoms. The leopard, for example, and the bear, and the lion. So, let's back up and see what Daniel has to say about all this in the 7th chapter. We'll take a moment. I think you ought to turn. We're going to read 6 verses. Daniel chapter 7. Now, these three beasts that's mentioned here in Revelation 13:2 represent 3 nations. It says in verse 1 of Daniel chapter 7, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream and visions in his mind as he lay on his bed. Then he wrote the dream down and related the following summary of it. Daniel said, I was looking in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea, and 4 great beasts were coming up from the sea, different from one another. And here they are listed. The first was like a lion, had wings of an eagle. I kept looking until its wings were plucked, and it was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man. A human mind also was given to it. Now that is a representation of one of the ancient nations. Verse 5 says, and behold, another beast, a second one resembling a bear, and it was raised up on one side, and 3 ribs were in the mouth between its teeth. And thus they said to it, arise, devour much meat. After this I kept looking, and behold, another one like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird, and the beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. And I didn't have 7, but we'll just read those 6. Now, Daniel is describing some nations here that have totally and completely ruled over Israel. Okay? This is very important to understand this. The first one is, and it's interesting, you may note here, Daniel lists these names, these beasts, one way. Was it a leopard first?
Lion.
A lion first. A lion first, and then the bear, and then the leopard. But John has got it in reverse order. He's got a leopard first, then the bear, and then the lion. But we know it's not a big deal. One is looking forward to time that hasn't occurred yet. One is looking back on time that's already occurred. And so John's writing like that, Daniel's writing like that as well. So here's what we have. And I'm going to give this to you, and then I'm going to give there are 7 nations that's mentioned here. Here is the third one. Okay? If you want to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, here is the third one. The third one is Babylon. The Jews were in captivity. Daniel was in captivity. He's writing from captivity. And Babylon is mentioned here first in his dream. I was looking in my vision by night. Behold, the 4 winds of heaven were stirring up a great sea. And verse 4 says, and the first was like a lion and had the wings of an eagle. I kept looking, and its wings were plucked, and I was lifted up from the ground, made to stand up, and all this and that. So Daniel is writing about his own captivity and the ones that took, which was Babylon, took Israel into captivity. But that's the third of the 7. The second one, the fourth one in line here would be whom? The Medes and the Persians. That's exactly right. The Medes as well as the Persians. Who did they capture? The Medes and the Persians came in and captured. Hang on, Michael. I know you already know that all. I want to. So, if this is the fourth nation, the fourth kingdom, and we already know that Babylon was the third. Who did they capture?
Capture Babylon.
Babylon. That's right. Okay. So the Medes and the Persians. Now listen to this description. Behold, another beast, a second one, resembling a bear. That's where we're still in Daniel. And it was raised up on one side, a lopsided bear. And 3 ribs were in its mouth, between its teeth. And thus they said to it, arise, devour, and eat. I need to keep up my stuff better. Hang on. I know I'm on television. This don't look very good. Well, I had a handkerchief here about 30 minutes ago, and I don't know what I've done with it. But anyway, I'll just have to do that, I guess.
Check your,
You see it?
you check your pocket.
Uh-uh. What in the world I've done? It's probably under something. Anyway, oh, thank you. I will take that. And there's 2 thank you very much.
It's used, but it's okay.
That's okay. I have sinus issues, as you well know anyway. There's 2 things that happen. I get nervous before I speak, and I get hot. It makes me a little sweaty, and thus, no, I'm doing good on that. I feel like I just. Something, I don't know what in the world I did that. Did I eat it? Anyway, okay. So the third was Babylon, and the fourth was the Medes and the Persians, and we just read in the 4th verse here, or the 5th verse, that this bear was raised up. It was lopsided. Why? Because, we haven't studied this, but somehow, because it was two nations, and one of the two nations was much greater than the other one. The Persians was much greater. They band together to overtake Babylon, but that's the idea of this. One was just much greater than the other. So the first one was the lion, Babylon, or the third one. The fourth one was the Medo-Persians, represented by the lopsided bear. And the fourth one is in verse 6, or the third one is in verse 6. It says, I kept looking, and behold, another one like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird, and the beast and 4 heads, and the dominion was given to it. So if the Medes and the Persians took Babylon, now they're in control. Who took over who captured the Medes and the Persians?
Greece.
Greece, that's exactly right. Under whose leadership?
Napoleon.
Alexander the Great. I heard Napoleon name, that's okay. Alexander the Great. Remember, like at 32, there was no other worlds to capture, and he sat down and wept and carried on. So, I should have come up here and put this on board. I thought about it, I just didn't do it. So, 3, 4, and 5 represent Babylon, the Medes and the Persians, and Greece. Now we're going back to John in the 17th chapter here, right quick. And I promise this will clear it up. Oh, here's my deal. Revelation 17. Show that to the crowd. I don't know. You gotta laugh at this stuff. There's no crazy. So here's the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits, 7 kingdoms. And they are 7 kings. 5 are fallen. Now we've looked at 3, 4, and 5. 1 is, and 1 is yet to be. Now, I'm going to give you some personal thoughts on the first 2, and then the 6th one, and then we'll know who the 7th one is. So if you had a straight on your list there, 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 5, we've got them. Who would be listed? What nation would be listed? Number 1.
Egypt.
Don't be too quick. Now, they need to think. You've got this all studied out. So he's exactly right. The nations which have captured Israel began with Egypt. Egypt is number 1. Who would be number 2? Just a second. We'll give you a chance because they're not going to get to it. They might. Pardon me?
Assyria.
Good. That's exactly right. You did get it. So we have, here are the 5. So we have Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, the Medo-Persians, and Greece. So let's go back to that one little verse. He says there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen. That's the 5 that's fallen. Then he says 1 is. So if 1 is, who is the 1?
Rome.
Rome. When John writes this, they were under Roman domination. That's exactly right. So then who's the 7th? And 1 is yet to come. The Antichrist. That's exactly right. It's what we're reading here in the 13th chapter. It is the kingdom set up, ruled, reigned, and run by the Antichrist during the tribulation period. That's exactly right. So, let me turn the page. Verse 2, chapter 13 rather, concludes by saying the dragon gave the beast, his power and his throne and great authority. And we see something here in just these first couple of verses that's so important. I want you to know the word either give, gave, or given. It's mentioned, and we've not looked at all this yet. It's mentioned in verse 2. We just read it. The dragon gave him, the beast. In verse 4, they worship the dragon because he gave his authority. Verse 5, and there was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words. In verse 7, and it was given to him to make war with the saints. And what was given to him, Satan gave the beast the power to do what he wanted to do during the tribulation period. So I emphasize that word give or given because this is a big deal. Everything we're going to see and have seen concerning the beast or the Antichrist comes through Satan. He's giving him this authority. He's giving him this power. He's giving him what he needs to succeed. And he'll give him this for 3.5 years. So it's far beyond that. He's inspired. Listen, I've written this down and I want to emphasize. The beast, the Antichrist, is inspired not by a demon, but by Satan himself, by the dragon himself. And I want to emphasize the importance of that. A demon has power in a lot of things, a lot of ways over humans. But what is going to happen to the beast and the Antichrist is coming from Satan himself. He's giving him this. I want to even overemphasize. I think we don't realize the power, the authority of Satan. I really don't. I said that last week. But it is tremendous. And he's going to have a great grasp on this world. Will he be brilliant, the Antichrist?
Probably.
Will he have an appeal to people? You think? Will he be able to govern the world like he wants to?
Yeah.
Will he be efficient at what he does?
Yeah.
He will be the best the world has ever seen or known. And it is all because of one thing. Satan gave him the power to rule, to reign, and to lead, and to destroy, and to do whatever he wanted to do. His power is from the dragon. His authority is from the dragon. There has never been anything like him in all the history of the world. But he's coming. The power of the beast is seen in verses 3 through 9. And we'll see this and talk about it in a moment. He says, I saw one of his heads as if it had been slain, and his fatal wound was healed, and the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. Now I'm going to give you some thoughts about what happens to the beast, okay? There are some that teach, and they've written in books and things, these different thoughts about what this fatal wound is all about. Some believe that he's speaking in military terms, that he will go into battle, so to speak, leading an army, not leading them, but be in charge of it. And the army will be defeated practically enough that it can say he did not have victory in it. and he will arise, so to speak, out of the dust of defeat and then go on to victory. They say that because of the, or write that and believe that because of the ending in verse 4, which says, and who is able to wage war with him? So that's one possibility. Some say this looks back at the Roman Empire. And that's kind of an odd thing to me, but there's been a lot of things said and written about that. Tonight, and has been for 2,000 years, the Roman Empire lies in ashes. It's non-existent. But they say it's a reviving of the Roman Empire. And again, Babylon was defeated by the Persians and the Medes and the Greeks by Rome. What happened to Rome? Say it again.
Yeah. They destroyed themselves.
They destroyed themselves. They died from the inside out. That's exactly right, Bob. They were never defeated as such. When the Caesar finally died, they just divided up the empire with the sons, and they just continued, and it just imploded a bit. And I'll tell you something, it's a lot like, I think the United States is moving, personally. And I have thought that for some time. But I wrote it like it rotted from the inside. And that's right. But some believe it's a reviving of that. Some believe that the individual, whoever that is, the beast, will receive a wound which would normally kill that person, but he will hover near death and then will be revived from death, so to speak. And there's a lot of folks that believe that, and some that I read quite a lot from and have a lot of confidence in believe that concerning him, that he's not going to be killed as such, but that he's going to be hurt, mortally wounded, so to speak, but not dead. And the world's going to see it, the world's going to watch it, and it's almost like the magician that, the lady just is there a moment ago and she's disappeared, now she's back. Kind of like that. So, here's kind of what I think. And this is what I've taught. And I think I'm going to stay with it. I think he's going to be killed. And I mean dead. And I think the world is going to witness this by satellite. And I think he's going to be brought back to life. I hate to use the word resurrected. Now, that says a lot. And that gives a lot of credibility to the power of Satan. And I get that. If it's done by trickery, so to speak, then so be it. But I think he's going to receive a wound that will literally take his life. And that's what's going to be the thing when he comes back from either death or near death, and the world believes he's dead or whatever. That is going to be the thing that's going to make the world do what to him? Worship him. That's exactly right. And that's exactly what the scripture says here. And they worshiped the dragon because he gave his authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, well, who is like the beast and who's able to wage war with him? He was worshipped because of that. And the word death here and the word wound here, we receive the wound, that Greek word means to kill or to murder. And I'm not a Greek scholar, I don't claim to be, but you can fall on either side of the fence you want to, and it'll be fine. I'm not saying you should accept the fact that he died, or because I said that. I think you need to just play it out in your mind and ask the Holy Spirit to give you some understanding of it. And it is a big deal because the world is watching, and the world is going to see that this man came back from either near death, but they believe he's dead, or he does come back from the grave, so to speak. So the power is seen, first of all, in his miraculous recovery. I think I've got that on. I hope I do. His deadly wound is mentioned, the display of it. He's raised from the dead, either brought back to life from the dead, or he is near death and the world thinks he is. Whatever you want to believe about that, that's fine with me. But he has the power. He's got this great recovery from his wound. And the second thing is the display of his power is seen in his blasphemies, according to verses 5 and 6. There was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months was given to him. And he opened his mouth in blasphemies against God, and to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven. This display of his power as he brings railing accusation against the Christians and against God and his tabernacle. I say this, and I wrote it like this, but I don't mean it necessarily lightheartedly, but this is the way I wrote it. Usually, you find the Antichrist in Scripture, or when you find him, you find a big mouth. Because that's what he does. He runs his mouth. And that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to run his mouth. He's going to be speaking against God. He's going to be speaking against God's children. He's going to be speaking against the tabernacle of God, those who are in heaven. And he is able, listen, he is able to do this for 3.5 years. And don't miss that. And we've talked about the drought, the pale horse, and the drought, and the things, the fresh water, and all the stuff that's dry. And for 3.5 years. Listen, now I don't mean to get goofy here with an illustration. July of this year was a good month for the folks in Faulkner County. There was rain that brought about a lot of hay. Okay? We don't usually get that kind of rain. But since August rolled in, and it's only been a month, it's been dry for 1 month. And pastures are turning brown. And if it continues, and it's just 1 month into it, we'll be feeding hay. How would it be if this continued with no moisture for 3.5 years? It's almost unbelievable to think about the animals that's going to die, the change in life that would happen to people. It's just incredible. But for 3.5 years, this is the last half of the tribulation period. That's what it's talking about. And it's obvious that he's got the power before that, and he will have a place of prominence in the Middle East during the beginning of the tribulation period. He's going to break his promise and covenant with the Jews, and he's going to rule the world. He's going to rule every nation, this beast, for 3.5 years. Unabated. No problems. If you don't like him, he'll kill you. If you like him, you get in line with him. And before we finish this 13th chapter, we're going to be talking about the mark of the beast. The sign, anyway, 666. It's just every nation that has been spared the trumpet judgments and the seals are going to be affected by his rule and the 10 kingdoms that he will be over. And they're going to rule with a rod of iron, so to speak. They'll get you in shape, and they'll keep you there. The power to rule the world. The description in this world is verse 7. And it was given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. Do you hear that? Authority over what? It was given to him to make war with the saints. So what happened at the halfway mark? He turns on the Jews. They flee into the wilderness. He's after them. If I don't forget, remind me to tell you something about that. And he's after them. God spares them wherever they go. If it's down and up at Petra, so be it. But he spares them. And then he turns on the saints in the world that came to Christ during the first half of the tribulation period. He turns on them. Listen, and he overcomes them, and authority, watch this, over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. Now, it couldn't be any more plain that he's going to rule the world. He's going to be over it. He's going to be in charge of it. And that's just the way it's going to be. Brilliant, sharp, gifted, ability, all the words that I can think of and some that I can't think of, that will be given to him by his father, Satan, so to speak. And that's just the way it is. He will rule the world. And the last one, verse 8 and 9, he has the power to be worshipped. That's what he's wanted from the get-go. That's why he broke with Israel. And all who dwell on the earth will worship him. You believe that? Yeah. Everyone whose name has not been written in the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who has been slain. If anyone has an ear, let it hear. So the only ones during this final 3.5 years, and before that too, the only ones that will be spared will be those who did not receive the mark, and those who received Jesus Christ as their personal Savior. And those people will be lined up and put to death, probably by beheading. And he'll do that. The only ones spared will be those who's come to Christ. And so the final thing is the perseverance of the saints in verse 10. Interesting words here. It says, if anyone is destined for captivity, to captivity he goes. If anyone kills with the sword he must be killed. And here is the perseverance of the faith, and here's the perseverance of the faith of the saints. That is a tough verse, I think. If anyone is to go into captivity, to captivity he goes. If anyone is killed by the sword is going to kill him. What do you think that means?
It's almost like he's telling the believers, if you fight back, pick up the sword and fight back, well, you're going to be killed by the sword.
Talking about believers?
Believers.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of us, they just can't stand at the thought of just standing there and taking it.
I know it. I can't.
Yeah, so you're gonna fight back. That means you taking your life in your own hand, and you're gonna be killed that way.
It's speaking exactly like that. It's speaking about the sovereignty and the providence of God. That's exactly what it's speaking to. That God is going to allow things to move forward in a very unprecedented way as far as death is concerned. And I think you're exactly right about that. I'm not sure it's going to be all just Christians, but mostly the Christians are going to get the brunt of it. But if you're opposed to him, he's going to line you up and deal with you. But I think the Christians are going to catch it. In God's providence, it is almost a decree, if you will, that if you're going to captivity, you're going to go, and God's going to say, okay. You'll probably be up here with me soon. Yes, sir.
Well, at that point, wouldn't there just be two groups of people?
Basically.
Because it says, everyone who is not protected by God, who has not become a Christian, will worship the Antichrist.
Yeah.
I don't see
Or worship
people,
Satan through the Antichrist.
yeah, well, exactly. I don't see people who are not Christian going against him. I think they'll all be fooled.
I
So
think,
I think it's just two groups.
yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I couldn't agree more with both of you. Yeah. Believers and non-believers.
I think at that point, it's just drilled down to that basic
Yeah,
aspect of it.
yeah. So we kind of breezed through the first part of this with the three nations that I talked about. I came back and I hope explained that in that 17th chapter, that verse 10, I believe it was. Do you have a question about those nations? 7, he said, if 5 no longer exist, 1 is and 1 shall be. Okay. Well, I hope I didn't muddy that up too badly.
But Jim, is there any place other than here in Revelation that when he receives the wound unto death and was considered dead, is there any place that it mentions 3 days? That he was that way for 3 days before he was risen? Because he tries to be like Christ in every way, and I thought, but I was kind of surprised it didn't say that, but is there Daniel or other places have anything?
I don't recall a passage that mentions that, and yet there could be. I mean, I certainly would give you that. But there is going to be folks watching. They're going to believe he was dead. I think it probably will be. But I'm not asking you to accept that because that's what I think. But you just go what direction you feel comfortable with. Next week, okay, no sign. No.
I see that, like Merle was saying, it seems to me that that's how they set up the evil trinity. You know, hey,
There's 2 of them right
there
now.
are 2 of them right now, but then it just goes along with this, hey, you know, at that point where he's gonna say, look, you've been waiting for, you've been wanting to worship God, here I am.
That's right.
You believed all these years that I was, he was dead and then he rose again. That's what happened.
But that's to the Jews, but now this is going to be convincing to the world.
Right, well, I mean, there's a lot of the
Exactly
world,
right.
right, that believes that.
Yes, that's right. This is going to be the thing that's going to convince the rest of the world
Yeah.
that he is God.
I just see that as their building blocks. So when they unleash that, people will look and go, oh yeah, what were we thinking?
That's right. That's right. We'll take a week off only from Revelation next Wednesday. Brother Phil will have a great update on what's been going on for them. We'll be back and finish chapter 13 in 2 weeks. Okay. Let's stand together and complete our time.